Hey everyone, I'm Cassandra, the owner of The Tailorette, and I create historical costumes and sell them in my Etsy shop. A lot of you have asked me about my story and how I got started with sewing and even getting my business going. I wrote a blog post a while back about my story, but I know a lot of people are not blog readers. I didn't touch a sewing machine until I was actually 11 years old, and I didn't actually get into sewing garments until I was 12. But I will say it started all the way back when I was younger. I did a lot of creative projects. I did a lot of cross stitch, crochet. All of my birthday parties were based around creative projects. I did probably 20 paint by numbers. We lived in the middle of Southern California, and I remember we were that weird family on the block in our neighborhood that we just dug up our whole front yard and we decided to redo it. My dad taught my brother how to use saws. We even just bursted out the inside of our house and we raised the ceilings, put a new kitchen. So with all that in mind of having a creative past and everything, my mom got all of our friends together from our homeschool group and she decided to teach a quilting class. And it was a bunch of my friends. We were all about age 11, age 12. The first quilt that I made, I was a reflection of a little bit of my age. I love to play soccer, and so when we went to the fabric store, I picked out all these big soccer balls on fabric and the theme was soccer. So that was my first project, and then my mom, for the next year, she had us make a bigger quilt, and we were all pretty much self-sufficient at that point. We knew how to cut things out, how to read a quilting pattern, and I was about 12 around that time. And after I did quilting, I'm like, gosh, I'm not a mathematical person. I do everything by the seat of my pants. I don't necessarily like following patterns, and so I decided to give a shot at sewing. And so my mom took me to the store and we bought this little book of patterns. I think it was called Sassy Skirts or something, from our local craft store. So anyways, I made my first skirt. It was an A-line pattern. It had a little ruffle around the bottom, and I loved it because I had so much freedom to create from there. I didn't have to have all these mathematical equations to create something different. So I decided to make a second skirt from the book Sassy Skirts, and it was a layered skirt with a bunch of gathers. Yeah, that was the first project that I was actually proud of wearing. And then there was this big change in my life. We left California because it was too expensive and it was a recession, and so we moved to Tennessee. And while I was in Tennessee, we lived out in the middle of nowhere, and I didn't have friends close by like I did in California, dropping by and saying hello. So what I did on my free time after school, I just sewed away. I would go to the store with my mom and we'd buy a bunch of patterns, and when they had Simplicity on sale for like $1 a pattern, I would stock up on like 10 patterns. I started moving forward with my skills. I started learning how to sew things on curves, how to do princess seams. There was a friend from our church who had an apron business, and she needed help making Edwardian aprons because she was getting orders and she didn't have time to make them. So she said, hey, I'll pay you a little bit to make them. And so I did that for a while. It took me a while to figure out the pattern, but I learned how to make that efficiently. And I was like, hey, I wonder if I could try something else. So I made my first Civil War dress because there was a reenactment in town. And so I wanted to have something to wear. So that was a huge jump start for my skills. And I made my own corset, which is junk. In the meantime, my sister wanted to find a way to make a little bit of money on the side. So my sister started making Regency dresses for Etsy. And the first one she put in this shop just sold right away. And she's like, hey, I wonder if I can make some more and charge a little bit more. She hated sewing. But I'm in the corner over here going, hey, wait a minute, I like sewing. I mean, I want to make some money. So this was around age 15, probably 16 more. She just passed it on to me. And so I took it and I started creating different dresses. I'm like, hey, I wonder if I could use better quality, because we were using taffetas and Duchess satins and satins, which were really tacky looking. I just want to up it a notch. I'm tired of the plastic look. So some other friends of mine were using saris to make some of their things that they were wearing. And so I was like, hey, I wonder if I could use a sari for my Regency dresses. So I found one on eBay and I made it, and it sold like within the first couple days of me listing it on there. I got a good review on it, and then other people were seeing it like, hey, I like this. I can't find any other pre-made dresses anywhere like this. So I started buying more saris, and that's how the sari came into being. But the style of the dresses started evolving over time of how I created the overlay and the sashing and everything. But then it started dipping into, hey, if you can make a Regency dress, can you make a Civil War dress? I was using the mannequins for sizing, and I still do now. I find it to be super accurate. Well, I was still in high school, and so I wasn't thinking, I want to make a living doing this. I don't even know what I was thinking. I was actually working for my mom's quilting business, which is now Cottonberry Quilts. And so I kind of put the dresses on the back burner. And while we were living in Tennessee, our family went through this really hard time together, and it took me 2 years to get back up on our feet. But at the beginning of the 2 years, we moved to North Carolina, and during that time, I didn't have any friends, we didn't know anybody, and so I had all this time to learn more about my skill and how to make my dress business work. So I completely switched from the quilting to dresses, and I started pumping those out through Etsy. So it just took off from there, and here I am. Even though I have my business now and it's starting to be successful, overall, I would say growing up, I did not have the intention of making dresses for a living. I always told my mom, I am not going to college. When I graduate from high school, I am done with school. I'm tired of tests and studying, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to do something creative, and so I guess I just grew into sewing. It's not necessarily something that I was like, I'm gonna be a seamstress and this is what I'm gonna do the rest of my life. I was the type that was not made to be sitting at a desk. So I would say that I was initially taught how to use a sewing machine, but as far as learning how to sew garments, the first skirt that I made, my mom walked me through that, but everything else from then on out was self-taught through patterns. I also bought a lot of historical patterns, and some of those historical patterns, especially Laughing Moon patterns, they have a lot of commentary on why certain things are sewn together the way they are. So I never officially had a teacher. I would say I had enough motivation to learn how to do it myself. That's what I like to say to a lot of people who are learning how to sew. Let your motivation teach you. There's so many resources out there that can help you learn, and when you have a question about something, just look it up. And that's what I used to do as a kid. So it wasn't this big official, like I took lessons and I got a degree for this. So anyways, I hope that that gave you a broader picture of what my story is like. Let me know if you have any questions or what you would like to see in my videos in the future. And hit subscribe because I have another video coming out this week. And like this video if you found it enjoyable, and I will see you next time. So why am I saying this? My mouth is getting dry because I've talked